Welcome to Hope Church. My name is Jen, and I am so glad that you are joining us today. Whether you are joining us in person or online, I want to personally welcome you to today's service. Here's what you can expect from our time together today. We are planning an hour filled with engaging worship music, video, and a message that is relevant to your life. If you're joining us online, we'd love to meet you in the chat. Our online hosts are available to chat throughout the entire service. If this is your first time joining us, we're so glad you're here. We'd love to connect with you, and we have a free gift for you. For your free gift, text the word CONNECT to the number on your screen, or if you're joining us online, click the link in the chat. If you're joining us in person today, you can stop at the hub in the lobby for your free gift. We would love to say hello. We're just about to get started. Welcome to Hope Church.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Hope Church, here in the room and online. Hey, let's get on our feet or on your couch, recliner, or kitchen. Not sure where you're churching from today here online, folks. Glad you're here. Glad you guys are here in the room. Hey, let's sing together. Let's do it. Oh, heaven thundered and the world was born. And life begins and ends in the dust you form. And faith commanded and the mountains move. Fear is losing ground to our hope in you. That's it. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. And impossible things in your name they shall be done. Freedom conquered, all our chains undone. Sin defeated, Jesus is overcome. Mercy triumphed when the third day dawned. And darkness was denied when the stone was gone. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. And impossible things in your name they shall be done. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. And impossible things in your name they shall be done. All right, hey, if you don't know this song, that's all right. We're gonna sing the next bridge here 4 times, so you can learn it. You can jump in. You got time. Goes like this. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable, and we'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. lift up our God who does the impossible for us. Absolutely. Well, it's an incredible morning. I'm so glad that we get to hang out together like this and worship our God together. And to help us with that, we're going to throw a QR code up on the screen. You guys can scan this with your camera app if you would like, or you can go to hopelakecountry.com/Sunday. Go ahead and grab your phones out and scan that, or go to that link. On that page, we've got resources to help you engage with today's service, so you can get the most out of today's service that you can. We've got some digital message notes on there, so you can follow along with Jason's message. And super importantly, we've got a Connect card link on there. So if you're newer to Hope, we would love for you to scan the code or go to hopelakecountry.com/Sunday. Click the Connect card link. Fill that out. We would love a chance to answer any questions you have about Hope Church, or to walk with you through any questions you have about faith or anything like that. We would love to walk with you through that. So fill that out. Let's keep worshiping together. Through every battle, through every heartbeat, through every circumstance, I believe that you are my fortress, you are my portion, you are my hiding place. But I believe you are the way, the truth, the light. I believe you are the way, the truth, the light. I believe every blessing, through every promise, through every breath I take. I believe that you are provider, you are protector, you are the one I love. Yeah. I believe you are the way, the truth, and the light. I believe you are the way, the truth, and the light. I believe you It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that are new. And all my fears and doubts, they can all come true, because they can't stay low when I'm here with you. It's a new horizon, and I set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that are new. Yeah. All my fears and doubts, they can all come true, because they can't stay low when I believe you are the way, the truth, the light. Oh, I believe you are the way, the truth, the light. I believe you guys can have a seat.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Hope Church. Everyone in the room, would you join me in giving a warm Hope Church welcome to everybody watching online, wherever you are watching from. We're glad you're here, we're glad we're here, and we're glad we are here in God's presence. Jesus says, where two or three come together in His name, He will be present to bless us. So whether you're watching at home, we're with you, we're with us. Jesus is with us as we gather in His name. Now, this is such an exciting time in the history of Hope Church, especially if you're new here. You picked a great time to jump in with our church because we have 2 more Sundays as a portable church, and then we are moving. That's right. We are almost out of here. Now, before I get to today's message, I want to take a couple minutes just to let you know logistically what the next couple of months are going to look like at Hope Church, because if you're not paying attention, you won't be able to find us for a little while, okay? So here's what's going on. First of all, next Sunday, we have an incredible Sunday morning plan because I have asked a friend to come and speak to us next week. Now, my friend, he's the pastor of one of the fastest and most innovative churches in Wisconsin. And normally, a guy who pastors a church like this does not come and speak to a church at our stage, okay? They're beyond us in that sense. He is so excited for us and so excited for where our church is at. He said, let me move my schedule. I would love to come and tell Hope Church what you guys can expect over the next season. He's been down this path before, so I'm just so honored he's going to be here because I invited him specifically to come and talk to us. That's next Sunday. Don't want to miss that. 2 weeks from today is our last Sunday here at Silver Lake Intermediate School. And again, you do not want to miss this one. It's going to be an incredible celebration. So many memories are going to be made 2 weeks from today. Then the first 2 Sundays of July, we will only be online. We're not going to be in any room. We're going to be broadcasting at 9 a.m. on our normal platforms, YouTube and Facebook pages. So that's where you'll find us for those 2 weeks because we're going to be moving into the new building. Then on Sunday, July 18th, we have a volunteer training morning. So many of you came to our Hard Hat events. You're joining a team. You're already on a volunteer team. You're going to be invited to this training event. If you have not signed up to join a volunteer team yet, stop by the hub on your way out. Let them know you're interested in learning more about volunteering. We would love to invite you to this event because we want everything to be ready for our guests. So that's what's going on Sunday, July 18th. And then our soft opening as a church is going to be the weekend of Sunday, July 25th. Now, as opposed to our grand opening. At our grand opening, we're rolling out the red carpet, we're banging all the drums, we're inviting the entire community. That's coming the Sunday after Labor Day. Our soft opening, we're open, we're public, it's on our website. Anyone can come, everyone's invited, everyone's welcome, but we also know that there's going to be some punch list things we're working through, some gremlins, some problems we're bumping into. I mean, just so you guys know, the audio system is going to have some bugs in it. For example, while we work through those, we're going to wait a few weeks to break the building in. So, soft opening is July 22nd and 25th. The reason why the 22nd is on there is because in the 7 weeks between our soft opening and our grand opening, this is going to be our weekend schedule. For a long time, we've wanted to play with non-Sunday morning gathering times because some people work on Sundays. Some people have kids' sports activities going on all weekend long. For some of us, even 10:30 in the morning is too early for us, okay? So for whatever the reason, we wanted to be playing with this, so we're going to take this 7 weeks and we're going to do an experiment. We're going to offer Thursday night services at 7 p.m. in the new building. There's going to be no kids ministry, just so you know, and we're not broadcasting that one either, but it's going to be in person, in the room, the full service, everything we do on Sunday morning, we're going to be doing in the room. And so we're going to experiment with that for 7 weeks to see what we learn. So if you're going up to the cabin on the weekend or whatever it is, you can come on Thursday night. If you volunteer and miss part of the service on Sunday morning, but you want to catch the whole service, you can come on Thursday night. If you just love my dad jokes that much, you can come both times. There's no restrictions. Anyone can come. And during the soft launch period, Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. We're going to have one Sunday service for that 7-week period. And then our grand opening is the Sunday after Labor Day. Once we get closer to that, we'll announce what our weekend schedule looks like. So that's what's coming up for the next few weeks at Hope Church. Now, all this series long, since what we're doing is a big, bold step into the future, every week of the series, I've been challenging you to take one big, bold step in your faith, in your own spiritual life. And we've gotten great feedback of how people are taking these steps. Here's what we've covered so far. I challenge you to invite 2 unchurched guests to our grand opening in September. 2 people you know. Could be family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, whoever. 2 people who don't go to church regularly. Invite them to check out our new church building because it's an easy invite. People are curious. They want to see more, and we are going to be ready for them in our new building. So that was one challenge. Second challenge, you already mentioned this one, volunteer, join a team, make a difference because the harvest is plentiful. Jesus said the workers are few, and the level of our impact as a church is going to be decided by your level of engagement. If we continue to be a church where everyone says, I'll jump in and I'll play my role, Jesus says there's a big harvest that I intend to bring in through my church, and that's the kind of church we want to be. Then I challenge you to do this. Embrace the others to become one another. A year from now, our church is going to look and feel different. Not because our vision is changing, not because our values are changing, but because more and more people are going to come, and it's going to look different. There's going to be new and different people here. There are going to be people here who have no memory of our portable church days. And that's okay. We're going to embrace people because they were made in the image of God, because we want them to become part of God's family. So we're going to embrace people who are other than me and become one another with them through the blood of Jesus. And finally, last week, I challenged you to evaluate and automate your generosity. And the reason why this is so important is because all of the biblical authors make a connection between generosity and flourishing. We don't flourish as human beings unless we practice generosity, and the world around us doesn't flourish unless we practice generosity. So my big, bold challenge was, in your life, evaluate your generosity and then automate it. Make it automatic. It's too important to leave to chance, just like you don't leave your mortgage or your rent or your bills to chance. You automate that. Automate your generosity as well so that you and the world around you can thrive. Now, today, we've got one more big, bold challenge that I want to give to you. But before I get to it, I'm going to tell you a story. In fact, we're not going to get to the challenge until the end of our time together today because it's a long story, and it's a story that happened in history almost 2,600 years ago in the life of a man named Daniel. Now, if you were a kid, if you ever went to Sunday school, or if you ever went to vacation Bible school, you probably heard something about the story of Daniel in the lion's den, kind of a famous Bible story, Daniel in the lion's den. What you might not know is that when that story took place, Daniel was well into his 70s, a very old man. Some of you are like, watch it. A very old man, when that, old it moves further out every year. That's all I know. I'm in my mid-40s. Old it's moving further away. I digress. So, today we're going to look at a story that happened early in the life of Daniel when he was still a very young man. And the reason why I want to tell you the story of Daniel is because Daniel lived through a cultural transition that has a number of parallels with the cultural transition we're living through in America today. Daniel grew up in a place where culturally, all of the institutions and structures were built on the foundation of the idea that there is a God who made the world and he made us, and we are to honor him, worship him, and follow him. He grew up in a culture where the judicial system was literally based on the Ten Commandments. He lived in a society where originally the arts and the education systems and everything had been set up around the idea that we are God's people and we are to serve him. Yet at a very young age, he had to undergo a cultural transition and learn how to thrive in a culture that wasn't built around the God of the Bible, that wasn't based around the Ten Commandments. A culture where you are free to worship and do whatever you wanted to do and worship and believe in your own home, but in the public square, this is what we expect of you. These are the values you need to adopt. And of course, the reason why that's important for us to know, and you've heard me talk about this before, but our culture is undergoing an incredibly rapid transition. When I started being a pastor in 2003 to, let's say 2013, my first 10 years being a pastor, the world I entered into ministry in was pretty much the same world 10 years later. In fact, just to give you a point of reference, in 2010, In 2010, voters in the state of California voted to ban same-sex marriages in the state of California. 2010. That was not that long ago. The last handful of years, however, has led to unprecedented cultural change, changing values, changing norms, changing expectations. And people who are Christian in specific have often felt more and more like they're the outsider, like they're the spiritual minority in a culture, where everything they assumed about how life and structure in society works has been turned upside down. And quite frankly, the church has struggled knowing how to respond, suddenly realizing it's in a position of being a spiritual minority within a culture that is spiritually pluralistic. In a culture where in the privacy of your home, you're free to believe whatever you want to believe and value whatever you want to value, but in the public square, here's things you have to accept now. How do we adapt to that? How do we thrive in that? And more importantly, how do we make an eternal difference in people's lives living in this reality? That's the lesson that Daniel teaches us. So we're going to look at Daniel chapter 1. The book of Daniel is basically his life story, his own memoirs, his autobiography. And this is how he begins the story of Daniel. He wrote, "In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it." Now, King Nebuchadnezzar was the most powerful man in the world. He was the first king to establish a genuine empire and superpower in world history. His kingdom stretched from Babylon, which is modern-day Iraq, all the way down to Egypt. In fact, in 605 BC, he went to Egypt, he conquered it, turned it into his vassal state, and now he's on his way home back to Iraq, to Babylonia. And on his way back, the guys have to use the bathroom, so they stop in Jerusalem. It was that kind of place compared to Egypt. And he says to himself, I've come a long way. I got the army here. Wasn't on my itinerary, but yeah, let's take Jerusalem too. It's small change compared to Egypt, but hey, why not? We're all here. So he besieged the city of Jerusalem. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand. Let me read that again. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand. Who delivered the city of Jerusalem into King Nebuchadnezzar's hand? I put it in yellow in case you missed. Jerusalem was more than the capital city in the mind of the ancient Hebrew. Jerusalem was the capital city of God's presence on earth. It's where the temple of the Lord was. It was the place where God was worshipped. It was the place where sacrifices were made. It was the place where priests would intercede between a sinful people and a holy God. It was the place where the ark had once been kept in the Holy of Holies, the place where God's presence was said to dwell. To lose the city of Jerusalem and to lose the temple of the Lord in the mind of the ancient Hebrew means we've lost God, or God lost us, or God is dead. And in a result of this war, hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people are going to suffer and die. And as Daniel sits down and he begins his life story, he says, there is one world-changing event that this one event dictated the entire course of my life thereafter. And what I want you to know about this world-changing event that changed the course of my life foreafter is that the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. I'm pausing here because recently, so many people have been so charged up and animated about so many things. Whether it's politics, or COVID, or the economy, and are we going to overheat and inflation's going to spiral out of control? And we worry and we fret and we complain and we grumble. Here's my question. Is the Lord in control? With whatever's happening in Washington, whatever's going on in Madison, is the Lord in control? With whatever's going on with the CDC or other things, hey, is the Lord in control? Whatever's going to happen with the economy next, here's my question. Do you believe the Lord is in control? Daniel has this remarkable confidence and faith. The worst thing that could possibly happen in his generation has happened, and as he writes about it, he says, yeah, the Lord did it. That was the Lord's will. Do you believe that whatever's going on in your life, the Lord still has a plan and purpose, and that He is still in control? Your answer to that question is going to completely dictate whether or not you are able to thrive in your inner life. Because if any part of you says, I think God lost control, the only thing that can spring up is worry and fear because you're not in control. I'm not in control. The Lord is in control. Even in the things we don't understand, even in the things we can't see as being good, even in the things we look at and say, but that's evil. God's like, I got a plan. Daniel is positioned to make a difference. Daniel is positioned to become literally the most influential person in his generation, we see by the end of his life story, because he starts out with this place of calm. This is the hand the Lord has dealt me. All right, He's good. I trust Him. He's got a plan. My responsibility is to play the hand God has dealt to me. So that's what he does. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God. These he carried off to the temple of his God in Babylonia and put in the treasure house of his God. Now, when Nebuchadnezzar conquered a people and turned them into a vassal state, he always did a couple of things. He'd march in and he'd say, okay, everyone, here's the deal. I own you now. As long as you pay your taxes and don't do anything stupid, you'll be just fine. And then he did two things to let everyone know without a doubt, don't cross Nebuchadnezzar, he's in charge. The first thing he would do is he would march into the temple of whatever people he just conquered, and he would carry out their idols or gods or sacred things, and he would take them back to Babylonia. It was just his very Babylonian way of saying, our gods have defeated your girly gods. Okay, that's all that was. It was an intimidation thing. Your gods are dirt. Ours are awesome. Don't mess with us and our gods. And so he got to the temple of the Lord, and there were no idols there, because it was against the Ten Commandments to make a graven image to the Lord. So there were some articles, some gold. So okay, just take whatever's not bolted down. They take that from the temple of the Lord. They take that off to Babylonia. The second thing they would do is they would round up the best and the brightest and the most intelligent and the people with the most potential, and they would deport them back to Babylon. This was brilliant. He knew that if he took the best and the brightest and most promising and most skilled out of the nation he just conquered, their odds of being capable of mounting an insurrection are greatly diminished. But the other thing that's diminished is their motivation. He's got hostages now. And if you get out of line back here, we've got them over here. The third thing it did is it took the best and the brightest from any conquered people group and it began to assimilate them into Babylonian culture and into Babylonian values. and into Babylonian spirituality and paganism. So it diluted the culture that was conquered and assimilated it into Babylonian culture. So you don't conquer the world and establish the first empire with bad ideas. This was his standard practice, and that's what he does here. Then the king, when he got back to Babylon, and we know that from history, he took about 10,000 people from Jerusalem with him in this conquest, 10,000 Hebrews. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, remember that word, I'm going to come back to it, to bring in some of the Israelites from the royal family and nobility. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. I just love this part. This isn't helpful. I just love this part. Who's writing this? It's Daniel. He's writing his own life story. Why did they happen to Babylon? Well, the king did say to find the most handsome, intelligent, quick-witted people. Did you see the cleft in my chin? Anyway, so that's how he was, tied into all of this. He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. So, Daniel's one of these people who's selected. Now, he's made to study the language and the literature of the Babylonians. Language makes sense, but what's the literature of the Babylonians? Mainly, it was astrology and the occult. This was like the first version of the school of the Magi, so that he could become adept in Babylonian culture and spirituality and paganism, so that he could understand the court of King Nebuchadnezzar and add value to it. So they take him back to Babylonia, they make him learn these things, and they enroll him in Babylon State University. Go Camels! And now he is made to learn and assimilate into all of this pagan Babylonian culture. Among these were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief officials gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar; to Hananiah, Shadrach; to Mishael, Meshach; and to Azariah, Abednego. Now, why does he make a big deal out of this? Because all of these names have meaning. Okay, for example, the name Daniel, when translated from Hebrew to English, means God is my judge. Belteshazzar, when translated from Babylonian to English, means Baal is my God. So he's immersing them into this new pagan culture, giving them new names, trying to wash the Lord right out of them and put them in Babylonian culture. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself in this way. And I'm going to pause right there for a minute. Daniel's having a rough go of it. Whatever problems you're having in your life, I want you to think of Daniel's problems. A foreign army invades his country. He's deported. He's made to study at Babylon State. He has to learn their language, get deep into the occult and astrology, so that he can serve the very man who conquered his people and killed his countrymen. He's given a new name that no longer honors God, but honors Satan. And there's one little fact we see here when we read between the lines that you probably didn't learn about in Sunday school, and that is the fact that Daniel would have been castrated. See, that word official that Ashpenaz had, the chief of the officials, is a word that is more commonly translated as eunuch. Because today, when a man has an unhealthy inner life and a midlife crisis, he might go and look for a trophy wife. But if you're a king in an ancient world, you had trophy wives, and they became your harem. Now you've got all these young men who are talented, quick-witted, handsome, and charming around the harem of the king. The king is not about to risk a son being born to the king that is not actually the son of the king. This was their way in the ancient world of keeping everyone in line. Now, whatever challenges you're facing in life, I'm guessing for most of us, they fall somewhere inside those boundaries. Probably not outside the boundaries of what Daniel had to go through. And he has this remarkable attitude where he says, okay, listen, you want to deport me, I can't do anything about that. You want to make me learn your language? Fine, I'll learn your language. Study astrology? That's fine. I can read it without getting into it and practicing it. I can still worship the Lord while studying what you guys believe. You want to change my name to a name that honors Satan? Hey, I've been called worse. I can't stop you there. I can't do anything about this, but suddenly there's one thing Daniel can control and at least have influence over. What's the one thing he can influence? What goes into his body? And the reason why this is a big deal is because, number one, he had Jewish dietary laws that were written in the Old Testament, kosher laws. There were things that were unclean, that would make him unclean. And he does not want to eat something that defiles himself. And number two, they were eating food that had been blessed in the name of Nebuchadnezzar's pagan gods. And when it comes to that, he says, okay, that stuff, fine. I'll go along with all of that, but here's a line, and you're crossing my value as a worshiper of the Lord. So he asks for permission to not eat this diet. Now, God had caused the official to show favor and sympathy to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, I'm afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned me your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. He says, Daniel, you don't know how things work in Babylon. There is a low value for human life. And if I don't do my job right, I could be executed. So I like you. I like my head more. No, you're just going to follow the plan. We have a system. Just follow our plan, Daniel. Daniel hears the no, so he comes up with a new plan. Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. So the big boss says no. I'll go to the guy who actually gives me my food. Maybe I can make a deal with him. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. Brilliant. Doesn't come in, doesn't make demands, doesn't say anything about his rights. Just says, hey, what do you think of this? Because you're in charge. I'm not in charge. What would you think of doing an experiment? And you're the judge. You decide the outcomes. Let's just try this for 10 days and see what happens. Can you agree to that? So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. So he wasn't going to win most popular in his class at Babylon State that year, but by choosing to honor God, God chooses to honor Daniel. To these 4 young men, God gave. See, Daniel's not actually arrogant at all. He says God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. What kind of literature and learning? Of Babylonian language, paganism, and culture. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them in, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, so they entered the king's service. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus, which means nothing to us. That's 43 years later. The Lord delivered Jehoiakim into the hands of King Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel had a profound impact on the entire trajectory of human history. If you find chapter 1 interesting and you want to go home and read the rest of the story, I highly recommend you do. We learn that by the end of the story, Nebuchadnezzar has become a worshiper of the Lord. Many speculate that this school of the Magi at Babylon State eventually became the school that the wise men went to in Matthew's gospel, of the people who saw a star in the east and knew they should come and worship the newborn king. He had a profound influence as a spiritual minority, as the outsider in his culture, as the one who brought nothing to the table, had no power, had no leverage, had no authority, became incredibly influential. And as we look at his story, we can learn something about how to do that today. Now, if you're not a Christian, what's amazing about Daniel is what we learn from him, it'll just make you a more influential person. It'll make you more influential with your boss. It'll make you more influential in your homeowners association. It'll just help make you a more influential person. But for those of us who are Christians, for those of us who were told by Jesus to be the salt and light of the earth, this is the path forward in a culture where you are the spiritual minority, in a culture of spiritual pluralism, in a culture where everybody believes whatever they want to believe, just don't cram your beliefs down our throat. Daniel shows us the path to thrive. Here's what we can learn from Daniel, how we can respond in a culture when you are in the spiritual minority. 3 things we learn from Daniel. First thing is this: learn the culture. If you are over the age of 40 like me, the culture you grew up in isn't there anymore. It's gone. It has changed. You didn't ask it to, I didn't ask it to, but that's the reality. The culture we grew up in has changed. We need to start thinking like immigrants if you're over the age of 40. I need to learn this new culture that I find myself in. I need to learn and understand the values of what makes this culture work that I find myself in. Why do people behave the way they behave? Why do they value the things that they value? I mean, if in my mind this seems like a terrible idea, but I see thousands and millions of people embracing it, what am I missing? If the Church of Jesus is going to be effective in the future, it's not going to happen by being curmudgeon-y and crossing our arms and say, what's wrong with these kids today? It's not going to do anything. We have to be spiritually bicultural and understand the values of this new world we find ourselves in. And just in case you're wondering, this is going to accelerate. This is going to go faster and faster. And the day you stop learning and learning and learning about the culture we live in and where we're heading, you'll find yourself not understanding the world around you and how it works. I won't go into it today, but in broad strokes, the reason why is because all of Western civilization has decided that we're going to value, more than anything, the freedom of the individual. And when you build that as your greatest value, what you have are 7.5 billion different value systems on the planet. It fractures and fractures and fractures, and we can't impose our values on someone else unless it's upholding that greatest value, the right of the freedom of the individual. I've seen this in atheism, I've seen this in spirituality, I've seen this in the Church of Jesus, where our greatest value is supposed to be love God and love your neighbor as yourself. But since that culturally is our greatest value, this is going to continue to evolve and change. Just so you know, that's the world we live in. That's our Babylon. Second thing Daniel does after learning the culture is he rejects 2 things. He rejects cultural assimilation, and he rejects cultural condemnation. He never comes in and says, well, I'm in Babylon now, when in Rome. You know, our God was defeated after all. I guess I'll go with whatever everyone around me is doing. Hey, the whole class is eating these foods. I don't want to raise a stink. I'll eat those foods too. He doesn't assimilate into the culture. He remains distinct as a worshiper of the Lord within his culture, and we never see him condemning the culture. He doesn't say, you Babylonians are wrong, you're pagans, your diet is not God-honoring. It doesn't condemn anything. Now, for some of you, this is a new category. You push back, you say, Jason, but the culture is doing sinful things, but the culture is doing wicked things. Are we just supposed to be okay with that? No, assimilation is being okay with it. We don't see Daniel condemn the culture. What do we do instead? Redeem the culture. We follow a God who is a redeemer. Our life stories are stories of redemption. And people who influence, like Daniel influenced, didn't come in and assimilate and become like Nebuchadnezzar. He didn't condemn Nebuchadnezzar. What we see as the story unfolds is he worked on redeeming Nebuchadnezzar. Today, if we're going to be people of influence, we reject assimilation and condemnation. We focus on redeeming the world around us and leading it to Jesus. Last thing is this: live distinctly within the culture. Move into the culture. Understand the culture, but live distinctly as a follower of Jesus within the culture. Now, here's what's interesting. Daniel is here as the archetype for someone else. He's here as the foreshadow of someone else. If you really want to understand how to do this, even better than Daniel did it, we have to look to Jesus. Jesus had a pretty godly culture that he lived in, being heaven and all. Pretty good values in heaven, in case you're wondering. And what did he do? He entered a very different culture of our world. A world where people all around him are driven by idolatry, looking for something to save us. Money, power, sex, whatever it is. Something to give us meaning, something to give us purpose, something to let us know we're going to be okay. He goes into this very pluralistic culture. And what does he do? He never assimilates into it. His whole life, he follows the word of the Lord. He worships his Father. He obeys his Father in heaven. And at the same time, he doesn't come in and say, you're a sinner, 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 sinner. All right, I think I'm done here. What's for lunch? He came into this culture to redeem the people within the culture, to sacrifice himself, to spill his blood, to give his life as a payment for our sins. He came to redeem. He lived distinctly within the culture. See, Daniel is just showing us the template Jesus would use to become the most influential person in human history and to become the one who redeemed us. So here's my bold challenge for you in your own life and for our entire church collectively. I'm challenging all of us to continue being students. And it's hard work, and it means leaving our comfort zone, and it means that we have to embrace the pain of being a novice. You know how that is when you're learning something new and you just feel so dumb because you don't know anything? For many of us, that's where we need to get real comfortable living. Being a novice and understanding the world around us. Because it is evolving. Every year it's changing. And refusing to assimilate into it, but being guided by the word of the Lord and his truth. And refusing to condemn everyone around us for being idiots or being pagans or whatever it is. But working on redeeming people within our culture while living distinctly within it. If we can follow that path, you will be a person and we will be a church that can influence many people so that God might redeem them. So let's ask for God's blessing on that. Join me in prayer, please. Father, It's hard. Living in a world where things change so quickly, where it seems that what is bad is promoted as good, and what's wrong is promoted as right, and what's down we're told is up, and it's such a confusing age in which we live. But we have to confess our sin of trying to make our home on earth rather than looking forward to our home in heaven, and trying to control the things on earth rather than letting you be in control. We do thank you for Jesus, your Son, who even when we become focused on earthly things, temporary things, you have grace for us. You again gently lift our eyes heavenward and tell us that you love us and affirm us and forgive us. And that's a message that our world desperately needs. Jesus, you showed us that simply condemning a culture doesn't save it. Redeeming it saves it. So help us to be your hands and feet, agents of your grace and truth in this world, so that more and more people can meet you. And finally, give us the confidence to know that you have a plan, and you have a purpose, and you have not lost control, and you are good. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Let's stand together. You gave your life for mine, nailed to the cross, you crucified all my sin and shame. It was washed by your mercy. You are the treasure I find, my reason for living. So let my life become an offering to the one who is worthy. And all praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, my King of heaven, my King forever. You stormed the gates of my heart. The veil in between was torn apart. And you hold the keys to the grave. As you bring things to life, you roll stones away. All praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, my King of heaven, my King forever. All praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, my King of heaven, my King forever. And just like Daniel, we worship God with our hearts and our minds and our words. We also worship with them with our physical body. So I know this might be uncomfortable, but I'm going to challenge you right now to do what we sing right here. Would you do this with me? Come on, lift your hands up. That's what we're going to do. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down before you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down. My whole life now is for you. Sing that again. Oh, I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down. My whole life down before you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down. My whole life now is for you. Keep it going, that's it. Oh, Jesus Christ, my King of heaven, my King forever.
Now I will lift my hands up and speak God's blessing over you. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord look on you with favor and give you peace. Amen. You can be seated. I know all of our focus lately has been on getting moved into this building, but there's actually a lot of other great things going on at Hope Church. Just one example is that this July, our brand new student pastor is going to be starting here on staff. Michael's going to be here in July. He's a little younger than me, so he understands some of the challenges of being a middle school and high school student in this generation, and I am so thankful that we can support and pour into the next generation in this way. It is such a critical time of faith development, and our church is now able to make a much bigger impact in the next generation. And we're able to do that because of you and your generosity. Last week, I challenged you to evaluate and automate your generosity. So many of you automate your generosity that we can make wise and careful plans for the future and moving forward as a church. So thank you for your generosity in letting us do that. If you'd like to begin financially supporting the mission of Hope Church, the information for how to do that is on your screen. If you are in the room, we also have a drop box over by the hub where you can give an offering if you brought one today. Next week, again, you don't want to miss, Pastor Josh is going to be here. I have incredible respect for his leadership as a local pastor, and you're not going to want to miss that. So we'll see you guys next Sunday as we have only 2 Sundays left as a portable church. Have a great week. God bless.